The following is a sponsored program paid for by Robin Gwaltney Group, RE/MAX Results. Welcome to Rochester Real Estate, featuring Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning. I'm Andy Brownell, and it's Saturday morning, and that means we're talking with Robin Gwaltney with Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How about yourself?
Great. Time is flying by.
It is. It's strange how when you're staying at home, it seems as if time is actually accelerated. I would have expected it to slow down, but not the case.
I'm with you. The days just go super fast.
Boy, oh boy.
And you and I aren't trying to teach our kids while we're trying to work. No. So can you imagine?
You count your blessings in many, many ways, and my kids are grown and out of the household, and my heart goes out to the folks who are busy trying to work at home, and then also having to deal with the young kids.
Absolutely.
It certainly gives you a lot of respect for what teachers do every single day. That's for sure.
I would hope so. Yes.
Well, we're here to talk about real estate today, and during the week we certainly got I would call it promising news, maybe. It seems that the state of Minnesota is at a position now that while schools will remain closed until the end of this school year, they're ready to loosen up a little bit on some businesses. It sounds to me, from what I heard the governor say on Thursday, it seemed like it was mainly manufacturing that they were talking about. You couldn't deal with a position where you're dealing with customers coming in, things like that at this point.
But if it means more people going back to work, that's definitely
He was estimating
in the right direction.
I think he estimated up to 80,000 as of Monday could be back in their jobs.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. That's great. Glad to hear that.
So that will likely put people in a more positive place and perhaps even put people in a position to enter into the real estate market, I imagine, over the next few months.
Yeah, I really do think that's going to happen. I know last week we talked about how all of the economists were talking about a V-shaped recovery, which is, the best case scenario. When you think of the letter V, start up at the top, drastic downfall, and then once you're to the bottom, a quick rebound back to the top. The more I've read this week and listened to, I think it's about 50-50 with the top economic analysts, and some of them do feel it might be more of a U-shaped, but with not a huge bottom, so maybe it's not going to rebound back quite as fast, and the longer people are sheltered at home and the longer people are away from jobs, of course, that will kind of increase the bottom, which will, in effect, affect how our housing market rebounds.
Yeah, everything is intertwined, that's for sure.
It definitely is. And, like I told you, prior to Mayo Clinic starting to furlough and do pay cuts and put on a hiring freeze, I wasn't really even too concerned about numbers changing much at all in the Rochester market. I just saw them shifted out a few months. And I think, I've come to the realization that our numbers are going to be down a bit this year, but I don't think they're going to be drastically down. I still really don't.
I heard a national report, Robin, and it was talking about what had happened, I think, the previous 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. And they said sales were down, but median prices were up. And the reason that this analysis was putting forward was it was more due to a lack of inventory than anything else. I was just going
to say the reason sales have been down is because inventory has been down. That's exactly right. And I guess if we look, I have statistics because I too watch, I watch nationally, and I focus more on our local market because that's where people come to me for my expertise. But I will say that if you look at the first quarter of our MLS, it's not discouraging. Now, the second quarter might be a little bit, but I think then the third quarter we're going to be like, yeah, this is more like it. So I don't think we're going to see anything horribly devastating. I sent you the March kind of recap. Did you get a chance
Is that
to look
from
at that?
the entire region, correct? The Southeastern
Correct.
Minnesota Realtors Association?
Yes. Yeah. So if you look at that, just the snapshot, if we look at 1 year change in closed sales. So by the end of March this year versus last year, we're up 16.2%. Okay, 1 year change in median sales price, we're up 6.1%. But 1 year change in homes for sale, we're down 13%. So there you go. We have a lack of inventory.
But you still have demand.
We have demand. And I think we're going to have a pent-up demand by the time people start to feel. And I think once the stay-at-home order gets lifted, we're going to see a lot more houses come on the market. And a lot of people are doing that out of pure respect. Like, I don't think people need to come out and look at my house right now. We can wait until this stay-at-home order has been lifted. I mean, think about it. Who are we putting in danger? Mostly the hospital employees. And we have a very strong tie to the hospital employees, right? So I think there's a lot of people that are saying, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep the moving around at bay. So if I don't have my house on the market for people to come and look at, that's what I can personally do.
Sure.
That's what I've run into, with conversations with people.
If you have the luxury to have that option.
Exactly. So hopefully we will be, that stay-at-home order will be lifted before we know it, and things can start to, move around slowly and responsibly, and there will be more people that are comfortable with their houses being on the market, and they will be adding them. I've had a few listing appointments lately, and they're a few weeks out, but not because of COVID as much as it is the timing of their move.
Okay. So there's always other factors as well.
Absolutely.
Part of this, Robin, too, is I'm gaining a sense of, strangely as it may seem, we are becoming acclimated to this type of living, and the social distancing, personal distance, it's becoming kind of second nature to us, that instead of approaching a person and getting, 2 to 3 feet away from us, we all are getting in the habit of, we're 6, 7, 8 feet apart, and we have our talk. And
it takes me back to when my children were elementary age and they went to Montessori school, and they would put their arms out to their sides and do a circle, and that was their space.
Personal space.
And no one was supposed to come into their personal space. And sometimes when I would get right up in my daughter's face, she'd be like, "Mom, you're in my space."
Now you have to have a hockey stick.
Yep, exactly.
Well, that's funny because I have it in my mind all the time because I saw a graph that said, think of a hockey stick.
Yeah.
So when I'm approaching a person now or in vicinity with others, I always have that hockey stick in my head, and that's not that. Yeah, it's a good distance apart, but it's not as if I'm shouting across a football field or something like that.
Exactly. I've even gone on a few walks. Yesterday was nice out. I think it was, I don't know, one day this week was 70-something. It was gorgeous out. And I went on a walk with a couple other gals, and we just spread out. And so, you're talking loudly, but, it's not like you're screaming.
Oh, yeah, we had that same day when it got into the 70s, we in our close-knit neighborhood had our big, gigantic circle again that we formed, and we're all about 10 feet apart. And, granted, the person way on the other side of the circle, you had to kind of yell a little bit, but it was still very, very social.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good weather helps, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like, we just need to get a little bit warmer temps so we can be outside a little more, and then you don't feel as shut in.
That is for sure. But we're going to take a quick break, Robin. We'll be back, and we're talking with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE results on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Welcome back to Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back. Good morning, everyone. Andy Brownell with Robin Gwaltney. Gwaltney Group-RE results on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking about a new normal. And actually, the new normal so far, at least through the data that we have, shows that the local real estate market, that being southeastern Minnesota, was still chugging right along at the end of March.
Yeah,
and that
first quarter.
Yeah,
first quarter is pretty much unscathed, really.
And the data from March includes 2 weeks where
we were shut in.
Yeah.
Well, 1 week. It wasn't 23rd of March was shelter in, but
people had already started a week before that because
because school was out.
Yeah,
and
it was already we all kind of knew it was coming at that point. That's for sure.
Yeah, by the middle of March for sure. I guess. Yeah, but yeah, if you look at it, in 2019, in the month of May, we had 639 in the month of May. Listen to me. In the month of March, we had 639 new listings. And then this year, in the month of March, we had 690. Pending sales were up by 9.6%. Closed sales were up by 16.2%. Days on market were down by 1.4%. Median sales price was up by 6.1%. Average sales price was up by 12.9%. Percentage of the original price received, the listing price versus the sale price, was exactly the same as it was last year, 96.7% on average. Affordability index, there were literally 1% fewer houses in the affordable price range. Homes for sale, this is where it really changes. We were down 13%. So that last half of March is where we really saw a decline of houses coming on the market. And as far as a month's supply, we went from having 2.5 months worth of inventory down to 2 months. So that was a 20% decline.
And that's what will drive the prices up for anybody who has to be in the market now to purchase a home. I wanted to ask you
and demand.
A question on this.
Sure.
I've heard this from other folks before when we always talk about median sales price, and I understand what median is. Then you have your average sales price. Is there one of those two a better indicator or a better measurement than the other, or just different?
I think when you're looking at the local market, looking at the average sales price is what makes sense.
Okay.
So if we look at the average sales price, we're looking at what has been the average in our market. If we look at 12 houses that sold, and one of them was $1 million, and 3 of them were 200. You know how to figure out an average. But anyway, so I think that it gives us a better idea of what our market is showing. It's not so different than a median sales price, but that is just a much broader picture.
Well, looking at these stats, it kind of suggests that the month of April might turn out okay as well, with almost a 10% increase in pending sales.
Right. Yep. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is good. And I mean, I looked at my overall production, our team, and our first quarter of this year was down by, I think, 5%. I mean, it was very minimal, just down very minimal. And I feel like our second quarter is definitely going to be down by a lot more than that, but maybe 25%. So it's not like business has gone completely, off the tracks.
Right. And we talked last week about why that may be. And that was a really interesting program, talking about the differences between the last economic downturn we had and the one that we're currently going through. And obviously, it doesn't take a lot to figure out that they're completely different. The drivers behind them, this being a health crisis and the other one being a crisis in our financial system.
What I think is interesting is when I look at like the new listings, and if you look at the chart that I gave you that has the historical view of new listings month by month, okay? So this goes all the way back to 2005, and it's comparing Marches. It's pretty steady across the board. Now, in 2010, there were a ton of houses on the market, and some of that was because those people were losing their houses and needed to sell them, right?
Sure.
And then it evens out again, and it's interesting to see that the new houses on the market this March, even though it's down from last year, isn't far off on this graph. So, in other words, had we not had the pandemic, this housing market would have just been through the roof.
And that suggests that perhaps it'll be more like the last 3, 4, 5 years than through the roof.
Yep, exactly.
Which were good years.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So that's why I feel, I feel pretty calm and confident. Now, granted, our agents are not nearly as busy. They're not selling the same number of houses. But luckily, I check in on everybody every week, and everybody's maintaining. Nobody's getting financially stressed out. Some of them have spouses that work paying jobs, hourly or salary, that are still going. But some of them do have 2 commissioned spouses in the household, and it does cause more stress, for sure.
Yeah. Think about that quite a bit, the business that I'm in as well, that there's a lot of folks in my business are commissioned. But if you look at their side of the ledger, with the median sales price holding and going up because of the shortage of inventory,
right,
they might get a larger commission off of each sale.
Right.
Trying to always glass half full type thing.
Yes, that's absolutely the truth.
But even looking at the Rochester statistics, which I know are harder to make a real good comparison because of the way the CMAR report puts them together, it shows that closings so far for this year that have been through the first quarter are up 13% in Rochester.
Correct.
And our median sales price in Rochester is up almost 10%.
Isn't that great? And so if you look at the pending sales, last year in March, we had 569 pending sales, and 519, and this year we have 569 for the month of March. So that's a 9% increase, 9.6% increase over March last year, but then move to the next category of year to date, and we're up 17.4%. So like I said, what would we be looking at? 30% up if the pandemic hadn't hit us? And not that would be a bad thing, but I'm saying because the economy was in such a good position before this happened, it pads the fall a little bit.
Yeah. It doesn't make it any less painful for those who are dealing with it at a personal level, but if you look at it in a macro sense in regards to a recovery, especially if the well is not as deep, getting back to the surface won't take as long. That's for sure.
Exactly. And that was my whole point. It's like I think that's all a good sign for what the recovery is going to look like.
We already have to take a break, Robin. Robin Gwaltney with Gwaltney Group-RE results back in just a moment on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Welcome back to Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning and welcome back. Andy Brownell with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE results on this Saturday morning. We've kind of been talking about the latest statistics concerning the housing market here in southeastern Minnesota and the Rochester area from Southeastern Minnesota Realtors, and they're considering the doom and gloom you see in the headlines. They're pretty decently solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, surprisingly solid.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I'm looking at the historical days on market. Okay, so back in 2005 all the way through 2012, there were high numbers for days on market, sometime exceeding 150 days for an average. And then we started to see things decline and all the way down to, less than 30 days starting in 2018, and the same with 19. And now we're up, but up to about 60 days. So it's not like, we're back to months and months on the market.
Right.
So those are all really good things.
And even if I go way, way back prior to the 2007, 2008 collapse, the days on market at their peak today are comparable to what they were at their lowest level
exactly.
during the boom.
Exactly. So that's why we are so fortunate. You know what I mean?
You pointed out we have a healthy market rather than the crazy market that we had back then.
Again, you've heard me say this a million times, but when people say, how's the market? I say it's like a really strong winter market, which would mean, nice winter weather. It's just in the winter, if we have good months, we have really strong winter market versus like those blizzard days and below zeros, and those things really change those numbers. So even though we are in April and should have a really strong spring market, we have a really strong winter market. So I still have high hopes that the strong spring market, so to speak, is yet to come.
And also, the other part of this I was thinking about prior to us getting together today was the governor on Thursday was talking, and actually on Wednesday as well, as how much more equipment's becoming available. More and more manufacturing is coming online for the PPE.
Oh, that's great news, yeah.
And I think that alone will make people feel a lot more comfortable about perhaps having, going into something.
People come through their homes, or yes,
right.
Vice versa. Absolutely. Yep. Everybody asks me, Robin, do you wear a mask? I do. I wear a mask. It's my personal choice. Is it because I'm afraid I'm going to go out and get it? No, I'm not. I'm very careful. I keep my distance. I wash my hands. I'm not touching things that other people are touching. And if I am, I'm using a disinfecting wipe, But I do it because I think it's a respectful measure. And does that mean that I think people who aren't wearing one are being disrespectful? I don't judge. People can do it whatever they're comfortable with. But I do choose to wear the mask, and I feel good about it. I feel weird when I go out without it.
I look forward to the day where that's not the case.
Yeah, me too. I have some cute ones. I made a cute Gwaltney Group one. Did you see it?
I did on Facebook. I did see it, yeah. Yeah, there's a whole new cottage industry taking place out there. People have seen an opportunity on that. What's that website? That Etsy, is that it? Where the people have their little home businesses can sell their stuff?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is these, face masks for whatever different. It could be cars. It could be flowers.
Sports teams. Yeah. Oh, there's always going to be that. But it's kind of fun if it makes it easier for people to put one on. What the heck? Then it works.
And interestingly enough, on the statistics as well, that I'm noticing that this year, the median sales price by month, we've been on a steady rise since 2011.
Correct.
And it's almost double
Yeah.
what it was in the months prior to the bust, way back in 2007.
Yeah, so whoever wants to tell me that real estate is not a great investment, I would love to have a conversation with you. Because it is a very sound investment. It remains to be, and I believe that will be what we will see moving forward.
If you just bring this graph with you and say, take a look at this.
Exactly.
The numbers do not lie.
The numbers do not lie. History repeats itself, correct?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, that's a very good point. And then another point about economics as well. The dips are always followed by the rises.
Correct. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Any other number out here that you really wanted to cover?
We talked about that average sale price. It's up 12.9% over this time last year. I mean, that's a huge increase. Still getting the same, so that's good.
So what it's going to drive is everything is going to be an inventory
and
situation.
Our inventory month supply right now, it's about the same thing when I spoke to you last week. We're at about 2 months. And what month supply means to the person who's listening and maybe doesn't understand that is if nobody puts their house on the market in the next 2 months, we will be completely out of houses to sell. So there is definitely a shortage out there.
And it's the same shortage you've been dealing with and people trying to buy homes have been dealing with for several years now, in this area at least.
Yes, and we're still seeing multiple offers even through this pandemic. So that's pretty encouraging for us in the industry and for the home sellers for sure. Home buyers, the ones that are out there waiting for those prices to drop rock bottom because of all the coronavirus, waiting to pick up that deal like they did after the last big crash, it's not going to happen. So I can promise you that is not what these numbers are showing us. We are not going to see a decline in prices. Values are going to remain strong and continue to increase.
So there you go. I love a voice of optimism, and I share your optimism, by the way, so it's
great.
Not disingenuous when I say that, that's for sure.
And I would like to just add that I do have these statistics broke down into towns, cities, okay? I have
Yep.
Albert Lee, Austin, Blooming Prairie, Byron, Caledonia, Chatfield, Dodge Center, Grand Meadow, Hayfield, Casson, La Crescent, Lake City, Orinoco, Owatonna, Preston, Pine Island, Plainview, Rochester, Spring Valley, St. Charles, Stewartville, Wabasha, Waseca, Winona, Zumbrota. So if there's somebody listening and wants to know, okay, great, that's what's happening in Rochester, but tell me what's happening in Winona, or tell me what's happening in Wabasha, or tell me what's happening in Lake City, call me because I can do that.
Well, speaking of that, how do we get a hold of you, Robin, if we're out there and you're interested in diving into the real estate market?
My cell phone is always the best option, and that is 507-259-4926, or feel free to visit our webpage at GwaltneyGroup.com.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Robin. We'll talk to you next Saturday.
Sounds great, Andy.
All
I look
right.
forward to it.
Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.